Hello. The rapidly outgoing European season once again proved how promising and forward-looking as football is as a direction of play. One pretty significant fact. For the first time in history, 3 out of 4 clubs that reached the final of 2 major continental tournaments are cultivating this manner. Only Real Madrid plays differently, in a much slower and controlled way, but obviously this team is unique. So why fast football is so effective and popular? Why it's almost a gold mine of the sport? You will know it by watching this video.
The first reason is the huge amount of easy goals and extra opportunities that up-tempo play brings. It's pretty tough to create and score against set defense. It takes a brilliant passing and improvising team of the caliber of Josep Guardiola's Barca or Zinedine Zidane's Real in order to accomplish it. Meanwhile, a quick counter-attacking type of assault gives a chance to take an opponent by surprise and presents much more room to operate. Under these circumstances, the goals are usually coming thick and fast. We could compare these situations with basketball fast break points, layups, and offensive rebounds as the most convenient and safe ways to score. We can discuss to what extent the increased speed of play helps on the evidence of vintage Barcelona and Real Madrid stats. If you remember, at the beginning of the previous decade, these two teams were tirelessly vying for supremacy in Primera, deploying contrasting styles of football. The Catalans played in a strictly combinational fashion, based on prolonged, almost immaculate possession, while then Jose Mourinho's outfit preferred an instant type of offense and proved to be more prolific in terms of scoring goals on the long distance, despite the fact that there is little doubt that Guardiola's side had an edge in terms of overall class. But the curious thing is that the next term Barca visibly transformed their style under the guidance of Tito Vilanova, with an emphasis on more active transitional attack, and outscored their arch-rival. Although it would be more accurate to say that the process of transformation started even earlier, when Guardiola still was in charge. The truth is that the profit from quick transition and opportunities that fast football exclusively brings are too large and apparent in order to ignore them. That's why almost every big club nowadays trying to implement at least several elements of this style, irrespective of general manner of play. For the very same reason, they orientated on long combinations. Manchester City recently acquired Erling Haaland, and Real are so much relying on Vinicius Junior's pace on the open field, being static and veteran team that specializes mainly on set positional offense. The second reason is inextricably linked with the ongoing evolution of the game. There is no secret that football is getting quicker and quicker and more intense from one season to another, and in that sense, this model of play appears to be the most appropriate. An up-tempo style means not only more goals, it also assumes more sprints and better, smarter ways to get into the opposite half of the pitch as soon as possible. Plus, there is an ultra-important factor in the form of distance covered. The team that runs more tends to win in 80–90% of all the cases. In the modern football, it's tough to compensate or disguise a lack of speed, stamina and agility. The only way to do it is available for technically immense sides like Barcelona of 3–4 years ago and Zidane's Real. The latter managed to win the Champions League constantly running about 10 kilometers less than adversaries, courtesy to prodigious almost extraordinary individual and collective skills. But the only team who could repeat this mind-boggling feat is perhaps the current Real. The others couldn't even try to think about it. Given that the formula, the more you run, the more chances you get to win, usually works correctly. Fast football is an attractive way of doing things for the smaller teams with limited budgets. Those who couldn't afford to purchase superstars might assemble a squad carefully and competently, selecting young players capable to sustain a huge workload and stably cope with supersonic speed. As you well know, this type of footballers is significantly cheaper. On the other hand, the price on them could substantially rise with the passage of time if they do their job properly. Red Bull Leipzig are the prime example of such a team. The German club, within few years, went from obscurity to prominence, quietly transforming into a formidable force in the Bundesliga. Thoroughly and diligently selecting young players, bearing in mind the conception of up-tempo football and its characteristics, Leipzig turned into a very successful project, both commercially and sporting-wise, without investing vast sums of money in high-profile names. The same, to a lesser degree, goes for Eintracht Frankfurt, the team that twice took continent by the storm in the past few years. In 2019, the Germans almost eliminated Chelsea in the Europa League semi-final, and this term finally reached the ultimate stage of the tournament. En route to it, Eintracht defeated the decorated Barcelona in a spectacular way, completely outrunning, outgunning and out-hustling the Catalans at the Camp Nou. It's really interesting that the German club will lock horns in the final with Rangers, the outfit that uses exactly the same philosophy of play. An up-tempo style became a serious weapon for the Scots in their quest to regain credibility in Europe. The fact that fast football is the best tool to make noise on the continent and eventually get an unexpected result is vindicated by the latest Champions League editions. As you may see, no less than 2/3 of the surprise packages that punched above their weight in the last 5 years played in a high-intensity style. We can add to it, although these are quite distant cases indeed, Schalke in 2011 and Borussia Dortmund in 2013. By that time, it was a huge revelation. Jurgen Klopp was only on his way to become a worldwide trendsetter. We could also recall Tottenham and Ajax that put in some staggering performance in the spring of 2019. Both these teams used predominantly a passing and cutting type of offense, but often resorted to fast break as an additional asset. After all these thoughts and arguments, there is a strong temptation to name fast football the ultimate weapon, but it's not the case. This type of play is so energy-consuming and demanding that it's almost impossible to constantly get positive results through it. Villarreal and Eintracht are two telling illustrations in this respect. The Spanish club, amid their Champions League heroics, spent a quiet and absolutely ordinary campaign in Primera. As for the German outfit, the conquerors of Europe are languishing outside the top 10 in Bundesliga. Both teams are struggling domestically for the very same reason. It's impossible to put superhuman efforts night in and night out and run about 120-125 kilometers per game each time. It would be right to mention that Villarreal, despite their deep and quality bench, and Eintracht are the prisoners of their style. As for German club, Oliver Glasner's outfit is even in more precarious position, bearing in mind the German league consists almost entirely of teams using the same fast and furious style of play. As a result, Eintracht have to cope with his fellow every week, whereas against Barcelona, Glasner's side could capitalize on their far superior speed, strength and stamina. Even the big clubs are rarely getting success via an up-tempo play. Liverpool are perhaps the only exclusion, although even Klopp's collective had enough ups and downs in the last few years. Bayern, that adopted this conception of football with the arrival of Julian Nagelsmann, so far rather lost than won from it. After promising almost impeccable start to the season, the German giant experienced how treacherously fragile and shaky this manner of play could be. The avalanche of coronavirus cases and fatigue, along with the relatively narrow bench, visibly slowed down the Bundesliga champions, and in the upcoming summer, Nagelsmann definitely should make adjustments, both in terms of tactics and personnel, in order to avoid these problems in the future. Therefore, if we summarize, it would be right to suggest that fast football is more suited to the medium-sized clubs than grandies. But paradoxically enough, this fact only gives more popularity and fascination to this way of playing, because it's available to almost everyone, or rather to everyone who is brave, smart, persistent and delicate enough in order to exploit it in the best possible way in his favor.